All right, it's Saturday. I just got off work and I get to do one of my most favorite things, but not the time of day that I normally do it. We have a bunch of house guests coming over tomorrow. With COVID, we've gotten to know our neighbors, and heck, we decided to have a few of them over so they can get to know each other as well. So, what is it that I really like to do? I really enjoy smoking meat. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna smoke some brisket. As you can see here, I've got an entire brisket. We're gonna have to trim this up, and we're gonna trim it down, and we're gonna make it more usable. At Costco, if you purchase these with the entirety, it's $3.47 a pound for USDA prime beef. It doesn't get any better, guys. So we're gonna dress this up a bit after I trim it, but before I trim it, there's something we really need to get going and attend to. So what do we really need to get going and attend to? That's building a fire. You can't smoke without fire. You need wood to make a fire. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna clean out this side burner a bit. We're gonna put the brisket in here. We're gonna smoke it, and I'm going to keep a hydration tray in it to keep the humidity up. And about 9 hours later, we're going to have something that's truly spectacular. So in order to get a good fire going, it takes a little bit of time. I've got a bunch of small, real, dried out sticks and wood. You got to get it really hot in order to get these larger pieces ignited. What we have here is we have some apple wood. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put some mesquite in with the apple wood just to bring out a richer flavor with a little bit of bite and sweetness with the brisket. So I use an element. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put that down underneath here, and I'm going to plug it in. And that's going to get hot, and all this wood is going to start burning after a while. The reason I use an element is I don't want there any chemical artifacts in the wood like an accelerant. So we want to keep this clean so it doesn't affect the taste of the brisket. All right, so here we have a brisket. Costco does a pretty good job trimming these things down. However, there are some areas of fat that you just can't use. And so these are really hard, they're tough areas, and you gotta cut them out or else they'll just make the meat around it even tougher. So, what's key to this? Well, you cut along the grains and you cut the fat out. First, you need to have a sharp knife. Finding the best knife for this is just going to be a matter of looking around until you find one that you're comfortable with. I got this at Standard Restaurant Supply. Cost me about $18. And as you can see, it's got a curved tip on it, which works fantastically for getting into these rough areas here. If you see how this is really heavily marbled along the meat, this meat is not going to actually be any good regardless of what you do with it. So I'm going to go ahead, if you get a little bit of meat out with it while you're cut, that's just fine. And so you want to get a curved tip one like this so you can kind of get into the between layers. Now there's going to be 2 layers of meat with this. There's the brisket flat and just the regular brisket portion. You have to cook these slow and easy or else the meat is tough, because what it does is this comes from the quad area that gets the most use on a very heavy animal, and so this meat tends to be real tough and very, very dense. On this a bit, we're going to go ahead and cut this down, cut in between. And right what we see here is just kind of this fat that you can't cook down no matter how hard you try. So as you can see, we got a bit of a fire going. This is going to burn down and it's going to be perfect. See, I got the front dress down and I'm just going ahead and trimming on the back here. Quite a bit of fat, so don't be alarmed with how much of this that you're not using. Just know that it's a great value for the money, and you can make something with confidence in your own house that the restaurants charge about $20 a pound for. So cost of doing brisket is pretty minimal. All you need is wood, you need some time, and you need to pay attention. As you can see, the fire is something that we need to attend to, and it's something that we need to keep close track of, because you start heating this up too hot and you got a tough meat to begin with, it's just going to continue to get tougher. So I've got some good tension on this, and as you can see, we're keeping this pretty close here. Okay, so we're just going to continue to trim here, and we'll check back in a few minutes. So as you can see, I've got this all trimmed up here. I'm going to leave just a little bit here. It will add just a little bit of flavor, but we're not like having any huge globs on here. This top part here, this is actually the flat. This is the stuff that they sell for $8 a pound in the store. But if you buy the entire brisket, flat it. But if you buy the entire brisket, you get the flat included. So I'm going to put enough salt on here for it to begin to do its thing. Then we're going to add a little bit of mustard, some garlic, and then some brown sugar. So as you can see, the temperature is about 400. We need to knock that down. To do so, we're going to go ahead and we're going to choke out the fire a bit. Take away from the air supply just a bit. All right. So one of the things I like French's for, and I don't like French's for a lot of things, is for smoking meats. Now I'm just going to go ahead and drizzle this all over this brisket here. Now I know what you're saying. You're saying, what are you putting mustard on there for? Why don't you just pay attention, okay? We're going to get to all of that here in a second. Mustard is a great ingredient. It's been used in meats for, well, since mustard was used. And it adds flavor, but think of it more like an Elmer's glue. Plus, it's going to do a great job at absorbing any smoky flavor. Okay, so I put some garlic on here. I want to make sure we get all sides of this meat with the garlic. So, I'm going to put it right here. Now the mustard, well, like I said, it's kind of like our Elmer's glue for our ingredients. If you want to get the flavors to stick, well, you need to make it stick with something. And mustard is fantastic for doing so. Now, normally I put even more garlic than this on here, but we've got a guest coming tomorrow that isn't a huge fan of garlic. Now, you're probably saying to yourself, well, that's quite a bit of garlic. No, not compared to what we normally do. And so this is going to have flavor. It's not going to irritate anyone's palate. And the smoke and the heat over time and hours is actually going to kind of deaden the garlic. Right. Stop. So now we've got some brown sugar. We're going to bring the sweetness to this here, and it's going to mellow out all of the flavors and actually contribute to the beefiness of everything here. We've got pretty tough meat here, so if we treat it special like you would baking a cookie, you're going to get some great results. So we're just going to go ahead and paint that around, and all that mustard is going to make it sit on there almost like a color by number project. You remember those color by number projects? Well, they're so silly. So now we're back on the top side of the brisket here. I'm going ahead and we're putting this on here. Looks like there's quite a bit of sugar on here, and that's okay. You'll probably end up losing about 40 to 60% of your ingredients just on the grates of the smoker as they kind of fall as the meat begins to kind of cure and cook itself. So make sure you get a bit on all the edges here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to finish it up with another ingredient here that's kind of tried and true for meats, if you cook a lot with meats, and that's a ground paprika. It's going to give it a nice rich hue. And as this smokes, it's going to even bring out even more character of the smoking process. So as you can see, the temperature has come down quite a bit. We're almost down to 300. I'm going to bring the meat out here, and we're going to go ahead and put it in the smoking chamber in just a few minutes. So as you can see, everything's starting to caramelize on the meat. And what that's going to do is that's just going to kind of seal in the juices, but the smoke is still going to permeate everything that we put on there and add to the flavor palette. Oh, would you look at that? We're down to 300. I'm going to go ahead and place some meat. So we're at about 255. You place the meat so the fat end is towards the fire, and then the thinner end goes back towards the exit area for the grill. Smokestack up top. This is how we're going to regulate airflow and actually how much smoke goes into the chamber itself. So the fire is starting to set in at about 230. The tricky part is going to be keeping the fuel going and maintaining that temperature at the same time. So let's just hope for a little bit of luck and a lot of experience, and I bet things turn out good. Some people just lift this lid up and take a check, so we're going to go ahead and do that. As you can see, the brisket's starting to change in color. The smoke is doing its work. So you can see it's been a couple hours. Right now we're sitting about 210, 215. I'm going to open it up a little bit. Get a little bit more oxygen to the wood. Oh, looks like it almost went out. But that's okay because the smoke and the heat has been consistent. Let's go ahead. We'll get this going back up. Putting a fire is probably one of the hardest things to do when you're smoking. Controlling the fire and the consistency of it says everything about the product that's going to come out the other end. Let's take a little look in here and see what's going on. So as you can see, the meat is definitely going through the process. We're going to go ahead and knock this back down a little bit. And we'll be back to check it out as soon as this temperature plateaus. So I've got these gloves here that are made for grabbing rotisserie chickens. They can handle about 800 degrees. Looks like the flat separated out from the main brisket pretty well. Things are starting to smoke. Flavor's starting to ruminate. This is going to be fantastic. Alright, as you can see, it's midnight. It's been on there a while, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take the brisket out, and we're going to put it on a rack to set and cool. So after 6 hours on the smoker, we've got a great looking brisket here. We're going to let it breathe for a couple hours. It's going to go in the fridge. I'll reheat it, and then I'll cut it tomorrow. Alright, so we're getting close to lunchtime. The brisket, it's looking kind of smoked. We're going to cut into this, slice it up, and see how it comes out for lunch. So this brisket had just 7 hours to cook. My beautiful wife was able to get this heated up. We've got some guests coming over. It's a little bit firmer. Usually when I do brisket, it's falling apart everywhere. That means we're going to have to do another brisket show. This tastes good. It's a little firm in flavor. It's going to be a nice addition to any plate. I wish you were here to try this. Okay, so to go with the brisket, we have a nice salad. We've got an assortment of Italian sodas and Fever Tree Pinky Grapefruit. We've got some lemon water that's going to be nice and chilled with the salad dressings here. I have the barbecue sauce out, not because I put any type of barbecue sauce in my smoked meat, but someone else might want it. And then we've got some beautiful casserole in here with cheese, noodles, cream corn casserole. My wife Linda made that up, as well as homemade yeast rolls. This is going to be amazing.
So you haven't tried it yet.
Looks like it's time to eat. Gonna have a good day.